Okay, good afternoon for everybody and good evening in Israel. I'm pleased that we're starting our program with the Bird Foundation. A little bit about our organization. The Rhode Island Israel Collaborative is a Chamber of Commerce to develop relation between Israel and Rhode Island. Today event, we will have the Bird Foundation participating and representative from ECOncrete. It's a company that we'll hear about it later. Couple maintenance issues. We have the next episode of our program, Little State, Big Innovation, that will be on March 9. Then we have our trade mission going, a virtual trade mission from Israel, from Rhode Island to Israel. We have our new quarterly program with Dr. Nir Tzuk about economy and events in Israel. Next one is May 13. We have our project with RIIC and the Hispanic community going on. I have to mention that today or tomorrow, our governor, Gina Raimondo, will be nominated to be the US Secretary of Commerce. And at that time, also our Lieutenant Governor McKee, will become the next governor of Rhode Island. Both are close friends with the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative, and we are very happy and congratulations to both of them. Regarding Bird, there were projects in the past with Rhode Island companies. Timoko is one Israeli company. They received the grant with Brown University and Rhode Island Hospital. Softwheel, they received it with Crawford Composite, and you can see the picture on the right. The wheel, which is going for handicapped wheelchairs, and Hasbro, which received with Vivotex. Today we have Andrea Yonah. I'm very pleased. She's not only a representative in the East Coast of Bird Foundation and more. She's also became through the year a close friend and was many times in Rhode Island. Our last event was before COVID, and I hope that sometime soon she will be able to travel again. And if you have any questions regarding Bird, about the information, Andrea is always there to help you, and she will talk after me. Our guest speaker is Shimrit Perkol-Finkel. I had the pleasure to talk with her multiple times already. She's an innovator, especially interesting to Rhode Island because she developed a new technology in concrete, especially for marine biology and marine life. And she will share her experience receiving Bird, about her company, what they're doing. But I think for me, more importantly, is the fact that she is looking for new partners here in Rhode Island. And I'm sure she will elaborate what kind of partners, and perhaps they can even join for another Bird grant. Companies receive more than one grant. So again, thank you again. I'll stop my screen and I will let Andrea become the host, and she will talk and speak about the Bird Foundation. Andrea, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm going to just share my screen. Can everybody see?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you, Avi, so much for always helping Bird to get the word out. And Avi is also the official Bird representative for the state of Rhode Island. And I do hope that I get back to Rhode Island very soon. I really miss going there. It's one of my favorite places. Avi knows that. So Bird, it's an acronym by National Industrial Research and Development. It's not technically a foundation, though it's called the Bird Foundation. It's really a federally funded R&D program, a binational federally funded R&D program between the United States and Israel. It's been around for some time. It's been around since 1977, so over 40 years now. It started with a funding that came through an endowment, 50% through the United States and 50% through Israel, $55 million each, to create this $110 million endowment. And BIRD administers that funding in order to help facilitate, promote, and eventually fund collaborations between US and Israeli companies. We're looking to fund and promote innovation and collaboration that ultimately, at the end of the day, brings mutual benefit to the United States and Israel. This is a program that has a board of directors, both from the US side and the Israeli side. On the US side, it's our co-chair comes from the NIST. The NIST also does our technical reviews. As together with the State Department and the Department of the Treasury, who are on our board. And on the Israeli side is similar entities, the Israel Innovation Authority, together with the Ministry of the Economy and Ministry of Finance. So how does BIRD work? So yes, we promote the collaborations. We help introduce the companies, so we do a lot of the matchmaking. But at the end of the day, what the companies are really looking for is the funding. So we're putting in, this is a matching grant. And it's kind of a risk, you could call it a risk sharing mechanism, both between the governments and the companies. So we're putting in up to 50% of the combined project budget between the two companies. It's actually a dollar-to-dollar match towards the development expenses of each. So each company is proportionately getting the match towards the development expenses that they're doing as part of the collaboration. What do we mean by a collaboration? This is synergistic relationships where each of the companies is providing technology know-how, commercialization experience to innovate and bring that technology to market. So BIRD invests in all industry sectors, the exception only of military. So we don't do anything relating to the military applications, but we invest in everything else, including public security, which for us is not considered military. But you can see here, especially a lot in energy, water, environment, and life sciences. Communications is very large. And then this pie chart changes as industry sectors emerge. This has been a successful fund for the two governments. We have now granted over $360 million, have approved over 1,000 projects. We're now at repayments. I saw actually the figure is closer to $114 million that we've gotten back from successful projects. So that's kind of, we've recovered our initial $110 million investment, which I think is exciting and shows return on investment to the taxpayers. And most importantly, over $10 billion that's in revenue that's either directly or indirectly related to the project that we funded. And what I mean by that are all obviously the sales and revenues created by the companies, the jobs that they've created, the capital investment that companies raise as a result of the BIRD projects, M&A, companies that either doing foreign direct investment, opening up operations in the US, or US companies opening R&D centers in Israel, and obviously export. So what do we look for in a BIRD project? So I keep saying innovation. So obviously high level of innovation. We want to see good synergy between the companies, meaning they have complementary technologies and they can together not only develop but commercialize and bring that technology to market. And the market should itself have, they should be able to demonstrate that there's an opportunity there and quantify it. And finally, that they can bring that technology to market, they can commercialize it. And we'd like to see that one of the two companies has that kind of experience. So why do companies come to BIRD? Obviously, the funding is important for large, small, and all companies in between. Companies like the risk sharing mechanism where the governments are sharing in the risk with them. Everybody kind of has skin in the game. The validation that comes with a BIRD project is very important. So when the NIST approves a project or some of our other programs, as I'll mention afterwards, the DOE, the DHS, so those types of organizations, when they approve a project, project, that brings validation to the technology, and that helps with sales, that helps raising capital, et cetera. And it also allows these projects, it accelerates their time to market than perhaps it would had we not have been able to get involved. What are we looking for in the projects? When they submit to us, we want to see, again, high level of innovation. Oh, I did that one. Hold on a second. Sorry. Okay, our upcoming call for proposals. Well, the upcoming one actually is coming right up on March 3rd with an executive summary submission. But we have 2 cycles per year. They're about 3 months from beginning to end, starting with the executive summary, the full-scale proposal, and the decisions. We'll have another cycle that'll start in September for the general cycle. However, we also have some other programs. We have a bird energy program that is separately funded through the Department of Energy and the Israeli Ministry of Energy. And that cycle will start in typically in the end of June, and projects will be selected in October. We have a Homeland Security cycle, and that actually call for proposals has gone out, and the deadline for executive summaries is April 26th, I believe. And that'll also end sometime in September. And the U.S. Israel Energy Center, which is a program that has one more project being selected for cyber, for energy infrastructure. But that program is pretty much, at this point, all the projects have been selected. So I'm not going to go into that unless anybody has questions. We've done projects for many, many companies. These are some of the ones with some logo recognition, but all companies, small, medium, and large, are welcome to contact us and see if we can help them to find partners, or they can come with a partner and we'll assist them. And in Rhode Island, Avi, I actually, the reason that I don't have the soft wheel on here is because I think that program, that the U.S. company is also listed in North Carolina. So for some reason they didn't come up, so I apologize for that. So it's actually 4 projects in the state of Rhode Island. And that's everything for me. And I look forward to answering any questions at the end. So from here, I will pass it on to Shimrit. We're really excited about ECOncrete. It's a great company. We've already approved 2 projects with them. Shimrit herself is an excellent speaker, so I don't want to take any time from her. And so I'm very glad to introduce her. So
before Shimrit start her screen, I want to start before she started screen, and Andrea, you allowing Shimrit to share the screen. I encourage Rhode Island companies, especially if you're in energy, high tech, medical devices. The cycle is every 6 months, so it's not a very long process until the next cycle. And I think one of the beauties about it that I find from my experience working and helping the Bird Foundation, by the way, I'm not the representative, it's a Rhode Island Israel collaborative, that they want to help you. And when you send your initial application, it's basically 2 pages and you get an indication and yes or no. It's not like you're sending a huge proposal and then you have to wait and you don't know what's going on. If you accept it after the 2 pages, and sometimes they will give you comments and say, look, maybe you need to modify, then you go to the process. And I think it's a very fair way to do that. So I really encourage you, and then we'll have Q&A in the end to share it with other people that might be interested to develop. It's a great program, high rate of successes, and it's a typical what we are looking at from our viewpoint of our organization to collaborate, in our case, Rhode Island and Israel, and the more project we can see going together. And as you know, funding is always scarce, so that's a really good opportunity for funding. So Andrea, thank you for your opening remarks, and in the end, we'll have Q&A. And Shimrit, thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. in Israel, and we appreciate that you took the time to present what you have done. And I really, truly hope that as a result of this event here, you will have a great connection in Rhode Island and potentially do a grant or just regular business. That's okay. So Shimrit, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good day for everybody in the US, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk about the Bird Foundation and the Bird Program. We really enjoyed the first one, and we're just about to start a second one, so I'm pretty excited to tell you all about it and to answer any questions. And I'll start with the presentation. I'll start with giving you a little of background about our specific innovation, why we actually developed ECOncrete, and then talk about the company a bit, and then present the Bird project that we've done previously, and give you kind of a sneak preview to the current Bird Energy that we just got, and we're actually now just signing the grant agreements. So that's me. I'm a diver. I am a marine biologist with over 20 years of experience in over 30 countries. I graduated from Tel Aviv University. That's where I also met my co-founder, Ido. And together we really developed a new concept for reducing the negative impacts of coastal and marine infrastructure, and actually harnessing those structures like ports, marinas, city waterfronts, coastal defense systems, anything to utilize that to encourage marine life as opposed to just creating negative impacts. So that's really in brief, and the background for why we actually need this is the fact that humans as a community, we live along coastlines very often, and I can change this image with any other probably picture from Rhode Island, but the end result is that we're building our cities on top of beautiful and highly productive ecosystems as we grow our population. About 70% of the structures that we build, if it's seawalls, pier piles, breakwaters, whatnot, is made of concrete. And that means that concrete today is the second most consumed material on our planet, and it's also responsible for about 8% of humanity's carbon emissions, which of course also influences climate change impacts. So we're seeing kind of a vicious circle where we're contributing to climate change, and then we're also experiencing stronger storms and more frequent storms that actually call ourselves to armor our coastlines yet again. That's a lot of disturbance to these coastlines. And even when we are going green or going blue, including the energy transition, we're developing renewable energy offshore, which is beautiful, we're still impacting our ocean to a certain extent because the foundations of those wind turbines are creating a big field that disturbs the sediments. So we have to think about the marine environment. And as a diver, there's a lot of benefits to having healthy coral reefs, oyster beds, mangroves, and whatnot that unfortunately are disappearing at the global, it's a global problem. And we need to come up with a solution that kind of reconciles with our needs to develop our assets, our communities, and the need to develop and sustain our marine ecosystems. Now, when you're looking at the standard solutions, there's very little opportunities to actually retreat and do a realignment and let communities kind of go back a mile or two and let nature take its course. And in heavily urbanized regions like Rhode Island, for example, classic living shorelines, which means that we can defend our coastlines with mangroves or oysters, is not always an option. And then many times what we're ending up with is the construction of what I call gray infrastructure, hard concrete seawalls and piers. And that's something that's a problem for the ecology and we want to avoid. And what ECOncrete is coming and doing is coming up with a solution for those hard defenses and making those through design and through material nature inclusive. So basically a win-win where you can have those hard defenses, but you can have some ecosystem services. What's the problem with concrete? First of all, it's a very harsh material with respect to its composition. There's a lot of chemicals in the concrete in marine environments. It's not just sand, cement, aggregate, and water. There's air entrainers and freeze and thaw agents and corrosion inhibitors, and all of those chemicals are inhibiting from kind of a rich and diverse marine ecosystem to develop on the concrete. And then also the design features are very dull. There's very little design features. It's typically repetitive elements, and that drives down the biodiversity. And what we typically see is dominance of invasive species and species that are a nuisance to the infrastructure. And that also causes regulation issues. There's a lot of mitigation, and there's a lot of compensation rules around building and even retrofitting these types of structures. And these are kind of the problems that we are solving with ECOncrete. And we're doing that through a nature-inspired approach that's really looking at how does nature do it, integrating those principles into the composition, the design features, and therefore bring the concrete to life. And I will also explain in other slides how that also taps into regulation, because by creating the infrastructure in a way that invites marine life, we can also get it to be considered as self-mitigating. And then we can reduce a lot of the mitigation penalties and make the technology even cost-effective at the project level, which is very important. So the innovation is about the material. We have an admix component that we have developed, which neutralizes the negative effects of concrete on marine life. And we're working with textures and three-dimensional designs that give opportunities to marine life to colonize effectively. And all these three work together at really bringing the concrete to life, and doing so without compromising the strength or the operational capacity of the unit. So this is not just a decoration for ecology. It's not just an add-on. It's an actual working waterfront that also invites marine life. And that's kind of our differentiator. So as opposed to artificial reefs, we give a full structural load-bearing solution. And this is how the concrete is appearing after 12 months in the Mediterranean. You don't really see concrete, you see marine life. You see oysters and tube worms and coralline algae, a whole suite of organisms that are really encapsulating the concrete and allowing us to be in compliance with many of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are kind of a prime target for us. And with respect to what we bring very strong ecological uplift, and we are measuring our impact. So we're getting double the parameters like biological diversity, species richness, better water quality. We're creating a carbon sink, we're creating habitat. So there's kind of a suite of ecological advantages that we can really target and measure. But we're also seeing that because of the biology that develops on the concrete, we're actually gaining strength and durability. And we're helping the concrete perform better in the long run. So we're seeing both structural advantages and ecological advantages. And I think finally what we're seeing, and that's again, because we're working with nature, we're actually creating a carbon sink. So for every square meter of concrete that we're building, we can have an offset of about 300 grams of CO2 per year. And when you scale that across infrastructure level, you're seeing quite an extensive carbon offset in a natural way. And this will occur every year throughout the lifespan of the infrastructure. So we're seeing some kind of climate change mitigation with respect to the climate issue. So what are we actually producing? We're producing different concrete elements to build breakwaters, piers, revetments, dikes, and whatnot. So these are some of the existing projects and products that we've developed, like the ecological armor block. This is, by the way, in the Mediterranean, but we're now going to have a big project with these units in Stanton Island. These are our tide pools. So again, it's a very nature-inspired element. It can go into riprap. Every place you see rock revetment, we can use these elements and help bring more life to the infrastructure. Seawalls, different designs, again, really uplifting the value of the seawall itself. Recently in Florida, we managed to get these types of seawalls to be self-mitigated. So we don't really have to add a mitigation measure when we're putting up these seawalls. We can do retrofitting of pier piles. This is a new product and project that was just launched at the Port of San Diego. This is an single layer armor block. It's actually in construction. I think they finished like yesterday. And then I want to jump to the bird product. So this is our marine mattress. This is the first bird developed product that we've prepared. The collaboration was done with a company called Besser. They're sitting in Michigan, in Alpena. I'll explain in a bit. And this one is doing scar protection at the coastline, and it can also cover pipelines of offshore energy or utilities in a way that also creates habitat. And this was developed in the bird program that we received in 2016. Took 2 years of R&D. We launched the product around mid-2018, 2019. And we're just now, this year in 2020, we had our first kind of initial nice sales and the first installation in Long Island. So that's the Bird Foundation project. As a company, we have now 30 installations in different locations across the world. Most of these have been demonstration sites where the product is performing in its full effect, but we still didn't have, hundreds and thousands of units as a full infrastructure. We only had a couple of dozens. And just now in 2021, it's going to be the first year that we're going to have a full installation that's like 1,500 units, again, in the state of New York. So I'm hoping Rhode Island will be next. It's also been validated in different marine environments, which is very important to note, from tropical to temperate, Mediterranean, North Sea. So we're seeing those positive ecological results in different locations. And we've also had a lot of opportunities to test the strength and the performance from a structural perspective in those various installations along the time that they've been in the water. And we have a lot of science behind the technology as well. We have a lot of scientific applications. So why choose ECOncrete? Basically, you're getting a basket of ecological services, as well as outgreening values and the bioprotection that I've mentioned. In the long run, we're anticipating reduction in maintenance, and we're seeing an increase in the performance in the long run alongside with the mitigation. And I want to explain about the mitigation, especially because it's relevant for the US and especially around the East Coast. There's a big issue, which is amazing. I mean, I wish we had the same policies in Israel. For every project development or retrofit, you have to mitigate. And the mitigation requires permitting from various agencies. And it also includes mitigation banking that can be pretty expensive. And this is actually the first case that we've had. We worked with the Department of Environmental Conservation in New York on a project in Brooklyn Bridge Park, where 2 of our demonstration sites were considered as a mitigation measure for the project. So instead of investing, for example, in cleaning up a polluted area or in mitigation banking or other options, they put the demonstration and they got the permit in a more, basically in an expedited way, in a cheaper way. Another example of this type of processes that we're seeing is in a project called Living Breakwaters. That's the big project I mentioned that's going to go in Staten Island just this year, later this year. It's basically a necklace of 8 breakwaters that include our tide pools and our armor blocks. And these are going to be protecting the coastlines of Staten Island that have been severely damaged by Superstorm Sandy. It's the first federally funded HUD-empowered project that's going to go into construction. And in this case, because the regulating entities have identified the envelope of the breakwater as an on-site habitat creation, we managed to reduce the mitigation from 18 million to 4. That means that we actually saved a few $1 million for the project because the penalties were quite significant because of the large footprint of the breakwaters. And the regulating entities have approved the ecological engineering as an offset for the mitigation. So if we're looking at the advantages, we're seeing kind of a suite of biological and ecological advantages, but also at the project level, I think, which taps also to the Bird Foundation's agenda, we need to make these innovations also cost effective to all stakeholders, not just obviously to the company who sells the product, but also to the actual owners of the project, because otherwise there's no way that these things can scale. So let's dive into the bird. So as I mentioned, the first bird program that we have been granted was for the development of this marine mattress product. And that this was basically our first, let's say, federally funded project and our first active collaboration with a US entity. In 2016, when we launched this, the company was already 4 years, more or less, in action. and we passed the initial validation of the core technology, but this was the first time that we launched a product that can be scaled. Specifically, the casting technology is very unique, as opposed to a wet cast of concrete. When you actually pour the wet concrete into a mold, you have to wait like 24 hours and then you can strip it, and you're basically creating one unit at a time. This product is made with Besser machinery in a dry cast plant. So this is basically producing 2 units every 2 seconds or so. And you can make thousands of units in a day on a single machine. And it's almost like, if any of you know the Eckerstein plant in Israel, it's a completely different casting system. And that was the core R&D process to take our technology from wet cast to dry cast, and to take it from an operational technology to a really scalable technology and cost effective, because obviously each unit, when it's done with dry cast, it's much cheaper than doing a wet cast. And there was also a big technology leap with respect to the design, because this type of system, it touches the concrete only for a couple of seconds, and then it has to let go. And basically the concrete has to stand, and the texture that is so important for us with respect to its biological traits has to be completely maintained. And if you look at the way that we designed the mold, and a lot of the R&D was around the design of this mold, it almost looks like a piece of art. That was a lot of back and forth with the engineers of Besser until we managed to come up with one that is extracted in full without any residue in a perfect way. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we met Besser, first of all. So Besser is a company that manufactures the mold system for dry cast. So they're producing the heavy duty machinery, and they're basically the strongest group in North America, and probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the world with those machines. And they don't typically do a lot of R&D. So we met them through another program, which is called the Savannah Ocean Exchange. Now it's called the Ocean Exchange, which is kind of an innovation program around oceans, way back in 2012. And they have a Center for Concrete Technology in Alpena, Michigan. And we met them because they were on the board of this Ocean Exchange, and we've kept in touch since. And once we heard about the BIRD program, which, by the way, Andrea, I heard about the BIRD program in Mirage program. Okay, so that's very important to close the loop. But anyway, once we heard about the capacity to work with a US company, we immediately thought about Besser, which is actually, it's a cooperative. So it used to be a public company, I think, and now it's a cooperative, and it's an amazing company with an amazing team. And we've been working very, very closely with the CEO and with the rest of the team directly on the development of this product. And for them, it was a first too. So we had to introduce them to the whole concept of coming up with an R&D process towards this. And they were so excited to bring innovation to a very traditional field. I think that's one of the strongest points that BIRD helped kind of jumpstart with this grant. I don't think they cared so much about the funding itself. It was more about the opportunity to come up with an innovative product and to come up with an innovative spirit within their company that drove them into the partnership. And from our perspective, of course, the funding was important, especially before we started raising more significant funds from venture capital. But still, for us, it was dual. It was to get the collaboration with an entity that can help us scale. In this case, literally help us produce at scale. And then it was also about the assimilation and kind of awareness growth for the product. So before we went into the BIRD and worked with Besser, we only did different kind of various trade shows. They were pretty small, pretty local. And I think just when we launched the BIRD, literally like 2 months after we launched, we went to the biggest show, which is called Bauma. It's like a huge trade show in Munich. And Besser have like half a warehouse as their booth, and they let us into their booth as a part of the program, and they allowed us to basically put ECOncrete there and showcase ECOncrete. Only from that show, we managed to close later on, I think it was 2 different kind of approved manufacturer deals for ECOncrete. So I think that apart from the funding and apart from the very heavy duty R&D process, there's also a lot of kind of diving into the marketing and diving into the scaling of the company and the awareness growth that is associated with this type of activity under the grant that we really, really appreciated. Of course, as a part of the BIRD, it's for us at least, and I don't know if it's true for all of the BIRD projects, we also had to deploy the technology, deploy the new product, and go through quite an extensive monitoring period. So here you can see the construction of the pilot that was done. These are regular concrete units, and this is our ecological one, and we actually deployed them one next to the other. The product is quite unique. When you're making these blocks, you have to actually lace them into a mattress, and then you can lay the mat quite easily, which is also, again, more cost effective than standard armor. And we deployed this in 2 locations. One of them was in Florida, the Navy Yard in Fort Lauderdale. And the other one was basically a little bit after the project, I think, in New Jersey. I think this is a video. Let's see if it runs. No, it's not running. Anyway, you can see quite clearly, this is literally after, I think, less than a year. You can see visibly the difference between ECOncrete and the gray mat. And this was something that we saw throughout the experiments. We're getting amazing biological results. You can see here the fish that are residenting, they actually live on the unit. And we did a comparison, as you saw, between the regular mat and our mat. Also, the feeding of the fish was significantly higher on the ecological mats compared to the regular mats. In this case, by the way, under the BIRD Foundation and under the grant, we were able to kind of give a part of the funding for students from Nova University in Florida to run some of the biological monitoring with us. So there's a publication, I think it's going to come out soon, that's going to be a part of the results of the project. And a part of testing was not only the biology, but also the strength. So we did a lot of testing on the concrete, obviously to make it in compliance with the industry standards, including freeze and thaw testing, strength testing. So we want to be in compliance with all the industry standards, and that's exactly what we're doing. And eventually I mentioned some of the interesting PR opportunities and marketing opportunities. So quite amazingly, this product was basically in exhibit in the US pavilion of the Venice Biennale. It came that through the partnership that we have with some of the landscape architects that worked on the big breakwater project in New York, that they were putting up the exhibit in the US pavilion. And the theme was resiliency to climate change and communities and resiliency to climate change. And they wanted to exhibit one of our products. And it ended up that this product was the most suitable ones. And they actually went in the end, and I think that they deployed the unit somewhere. It came back to the US and deployed it somewhere. But it was beautiful. And obviously that gave us both ourselves and Besser, and hopefully also BIRD, a lot to talk about. And I want to quickly jump to the next round of funding. So we were just awarded the BIRD Energy for a new product that's going to target a very important segment. I briefly mentioned the offshore wind, and also Avi mentioned how important that's going to be, including in Rhode Island. So currently there's a growth, there's a boom in kind of energy transition, and the East Coast of the US is definitely growing in that arena. And the market potential is vast, not only in the US and not only in the East Coast, but globally, basically, with the requirements for blue energy production. And as I mentioned, there's also problems at the seabed. So all of these turbines, first of all, they have to be stabilized. So they can't just put the monopile. They have to really create an apron around the pile, which is called scar protection. And our idea for the project was to come up with a scar protection that also creates habitat value, that also creates opportunities for marine ecology, for fisheries, for potentially even towards aquaculture. And the partner that we found is Lafarge-Holcim, which is basically the #1 cement company in the world and obviously a leader in North America. And they're going to be producing a new element for scar protection with us. It's the first of the kind. It's going to be a kind of an interlocking element that could be used from any standard machinery that does the dumping of the scar. We're just now in advanced stages of closing the contract between us and them, and then closing the 3-way contract for the bird. Hopefully everything will be signed within 1 or 2 weeks max. And we can launch this. And I think that this is a super interesting field of looking into nature inclusive infrastructure, specifically for the offshore industry. I can tell you that ECOncrete has already been kind of included in this arena in Europe. This is a catalog by the Dutch government for nature inclusive design. And actually the bird mat is in there as a nature inclusive solution and our armor block. But this is a different type of scour than the one that we're developing now, which is almost fully automated, can be dumped directly into the turbine. So we're very excited about that. And before we go to the Q&A, I think the one last thing I want you guys to think about is how can we make this the new norm? So if we're developing an innovation that can be deployed literally for any concrete that's touching the water, there are still some challenges to getting this to be completely adopted. And one of the things that we're working on is coming up with new regulations and new incentives and new policies to make this the new norm. And we've been collaborating with the Metropolitan Waterfront Alliance around what is called the WEDGE, Waterfront Edge Design Guidelines, that have, we see it as an equivalent to the LEED system in green construction on land. And hopefully, once these types of technologies become integrated into the policies, we can really make a change and bring our, what we call win-win solution to every coastline, to every coastal community that needs developing and needs protection. And I think this is a good time for questions.
Shimrit, it was a fascinating presentation. And I think Rhode Island should be one of your key places. I don't know if our audience knows, and I know I told Shimrit, but Rhode Island was the first in the country that started the offshore wind in Block Island. As a matter of fact, the company Ørsted USA offices are here in Rhode Island, and they just announced doubling in the coming years. As the wind powers, there'll be a huge project in Massachusetts, but in Rhode Island, they're going to have a lot of the materials is built here, and so that's one thing. And our governor, which will be probably as of tomorrow, will be the Secretary of Commerce for the United States, and I hope as Secretary of Commerce, she will continue to support the BIRD project. I know she was a huge supporter of the offshore wind, net zero energy, and I want to mention that Senator Whitehouse in Rhode Island as well is a very great supporter of green technology. And in Rhode Island, we have Narragansett Bay and offshores that are much longer than anything that the size of the state, one of the longest shores, if one can believe it. Since this will be recorded, I will make sure that it will be sent to the Senator's office, the Governor's office, other stakeholders in Rhode Island, University of Rhode Island, perhaps Rhode Island School of Design with their architecture design. And I think the next thing is going to the Q&A, and Andrea, thank you also. And perhaps since we're a small group, if I saw there was a question. So why not, the person that wrote the question, unmute yourself and ask the question. We're a small group, so I'm not worried we'll be 100 people jumping in. So if nobody's, I'll read the questions then. Presenters, looking forward to seeing ECOncrete in Newport, Rhode Island and catching up soon. Congratulations on your continued collaboration with Baird, Chris Blue Institute Labs. Anybody else have any questions? Or Andrea, you want to add some more stuff?
So I would just say that if you're looking for a partner, or if you know of a company that is looking for a partner, your first step would be to get in touch with Avi, because Avi also knows everybody in both places. But Avi and I will typically work together and assist you in identifying potential partners. We'll usually ask that you give us a one-pager and some type of a collaboration proposition. And with that, we'll approach some of the Israeli companies that you identified and help facilitate an introductory call, see where that leads. You know, and this obviously can't be done a week before a deadline, but since we have several cycles per year, every year, 2 general ones, one just focusing on energy, one focusing on homeland security, there's always an opportunity to submit. I'll just say one other thing, because there's such great universities in Rhode Island, the Homeland Security and the energy program allow for a university to serve as a partner with a company. And we've had some great conversations with URI, for example, that in fact are even leading to a submission with in a consortium for our cyber energy cycle.
Shimrit, I have a question to you. If you had the next third project that you would look to a partner in Rhode Island, what type of project, without disclosing business secrets, but what would be something that will be interesting to find a partner in Rhode Island? Except the commercial side, but like for a bird side.
Yeah, I think that the next step would probably be, there's some massive units that go into, for example, bridge foundations, which is something that was very scary for us until now. I think that after doing the project with Lafarge, which is a big cement manufacturer specialist, we might be able to make that leap into, let's say, the next level of mega infrastructure projects. And that's just a thought, but it's really, for us, it's one step at a time. And unfortunately, there's going to be a whole lot of more construction from artificial islands and land reclamation projects that we're seeing in different locations. And I hope that they will stop, but as long as they're not stopping, we can help them at least be better.
That's great. I saw Kate Bramson earlier. She's a reporter and worked with government policy, and I'm sure, here she is. And Kate, I know you worked a lot of those projects, so do you have any questions or any thoughts?
So when I think about what you've shown us, I wonder how it might help communities like Newport with coastal erosion, and it does feel too late to sort of step back the development that's there on the edges. But I think of when we had Hurricane Sandy a few years ago, I was touring the area down in, well, Misquamicut and Westerly in Rhode Island, where we've got 400 miles of coastline here, and homes are getting overrun by the ocean. And I wonder, I guess I wasn't quite sure whether your work and whether those panels sort of help with the erosion.
Yeah, absolutely. So the breakwaters that I've shown in Staten Island are exactly for that purpose. They're modeled to not only prevent erosion, but actually increase sand deposition along the coastline, and they're aligned to do that. We work with engineers and we work with landscape architects on the best structural solution. So the risk reduction is typically number one on the agenda. And then the ecological component comes on top of that, because, for example, in historic times, it was oyster reefs that used to protect the coastlines. And they were overfished and overpolluted, and therefore they were literally extinct. And now they're repopulating them. So the balance between the ecology and the communities and the needs of the communities is something that we're very much in tune with. And yes, we can help with erosion. Even the product that we did with the bird, the first bird, is exactly for erosion protection along the coastline. That's what we did on New Jersey with that installation. So,
I have to say, you mentioned aquamarine. Aquamarine also is in Rhode Island, especially in Narragansett Bay. There is a growing of oyster and others, and potentially your solution can help, obviously, to grow the amount of harvest without damaging Narragansett Bay, which is really precious here in Rhode Island. And there was a lot of fund and resources throughout the years to clean it up first, because Rhode Island used to be very industrial, and then also to make it basically a place where aquamarine can live and survive. So I think that another potential that we're gonna connect maybe one of the university or other people in order to try to see if there is a further connection with Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Any final remarks from you, Andrea, and then Shimrit, and then I'll say a couple minutes.
I would just say that, you know, in bringing Shimrit to talk about their projects, you know, sure, you know, we'd always be happy to see another bird project, but I think especially for our bird grantees, we're looking for them to leverage what they've done, and we would love to see ECOncrete get some opportunities in Rhode Island to actually sell their products, to sell those products that they developed through bird. So by selling those products and by incorporating this innovation into the Rhode Island coastline for bird, that's a huge win-win. So hopefully through this webinar and through the context with you, and I saw that Kathy is on this call from Commerce. So hopefully, you know, those connections, and through Newport and Ocean Exchange, and they'll be able to you know, to bring ECOncrete to the Rhode Island coastlines.
Thank you, Andrea. Shimrit.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to echo that literally. It's very important for us to keep innovating, but it's also important for us to deploy our innovation, and a part of the program is to actually sell the product eventually. So any product opportunities, any project opportunities in Rhode Island, I think there's a lot of potential to use the product in Rhode Island, and I would love to make those connections.
You don't need to feel bad about willing to sell in Rhode Island, because, as I say, it's government funded, and by selling it, you will create more jobs, because in the end of the day, it's not a holistic affair, but it's rather real jobs, because even if it's not in Rhode Island, still the US and Israeli economy, which are both. So you should be feeling very proud of it, on your technological achievement, but also you're creating jobs. I mean, you probably don't think about it sometimes, maybe in your own company, but in the large scale, that's what Bird's Foundation really mission is to create job, help with innovation. And we in the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative, if we can be assisting in this process to anybody, we'll find a great honor in it. And we want to thank everybody that listened. We will send it also, as it is recorded, to other people here in Rhode Island that might be interested, and beyond in Rhode Island, we'll share it so other people potentially can also apply for Bird Foundation, because it's a great project. And again, it's your US and Israeli taxpayer dollars. It's not a goodwill. I mean, it's you paying for it, we pay for it. And the more successful we made it, it is. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Shimrit.
Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon here, and good night in Israel. And until next time, Shalom and litaot.
Thank you, Avi.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.